Kia ora koutou. I'm Jude McLaren. I'm from the New Zealand Film Commission, and I've got a strange title called Talent Pathways Manager. I'm part of the talent development team, and I work in partnership with Script to Screen to bring fresh shorts to you all. And I'm joined by Emma Mortimer. So I'll just let Emma introduce herself.
Kia ora, thanks Jude. Hi, welcome everyone to the Kōpere Hou Fresh Shorts webinar for 2022. It's great to be back again for another round, and really awesome to have you all here. Thanks for tuning in. Great.
What we thought we'd do tonight or this afternoon is we're going to introduce our backgrounds a little bit really quickly, and then we're going to go through, Emma and I have talked prior to coming here, and we've looked through the guidelines, and we're going to go quite quickly through those guidelines, just, you know, generally what we think people want to know, or important elements, but also people have been really generous with sending questions prior to, and we've got some fantastic questions. So we want to leave a lot of time for questions, and we also really encourage you to put questions in the Q&A, and those will be, they'll come up in our feed and we'll be able to answer those. What we think we'll do is we're going to try and keep, apart from talking about the story, other elements in the application we'll keep to sort of, you know, about 5 minutes or less if we can. So this is recorded. So if you feel like we're going a little bit fast, you can go back and listen to the recording. But we'll stop and see if there are any questions in each section. But Emma, if you'd just like to share a little bit about your background and your experience, so that people understand like what you're bringing to your role as well.
Yes, sure thing. And also just to let you know, behind that Script to Screen black box is Vero, and she's driving us tonight. Yeah, so thank you, Vero, in the background there. She'll be pulling up the portal and images as we go along. Yeah, so cool. So I am a producer myself. I have a background, I came through working with Vincent Ward for many years, and then with his producer Emma Slade, managed a lot of her Premiere Pathway shoots. So those were proof of concepts for feature films that she had in development. Some have been made, some not. So some are still in development. And from there, actually moved into art coordinating for quite a few years, sort of learning how to run big budgets and big teams, and alongside that developing my own short films. So I have produced a couple of fresh shorts amongst others, and music videos, and so I have been exactly where you are, and I'm really excited to be on this side, kind of helping to share hopefully a little bit about what I've learned in the process as I've been along on my journey. So yeah, really cool to be here to hopefully give back to all of you.
Wonderful. And you've also, so you've also just completed one of the episode 1 webisodes as well, is that right?
Yes, so that's still yet to be shot, but it has been part of that program, the episode 1 program this year, with writer-director Asuka Sylvie. So we've got that on the boil, and still a few shorts in development as well as features. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know you've done lots of applications because I've read them. Emma's very good at applications, people. Okay, I just want to let you know. So she'll be talking to you from her own experience. My background, I think it's like 20 plus years, which makes me feel old and tired. But I spent 13 years in a very kind of productive, quite large production company, independent New Zealand production company, and I was across documentary and factual for 6 years in production, and then I went into post-production drama for about 3 years, and then I was in development across anything you can imagine, from film, drama series, kids, factual, you name it. I worked with about 5 producers, and it was my full-time job to write applications. So that's my background and resource to you as well. So as well as Emma, you know, if people get in contact with me, I'm more than happy to talk about Fresh Shorts. So that sort of leads us into the application, and we're gonna start with the video. So Emma, what do you think that, you know, we're looking for? What's important about that video?
I think that definitely for me, it's kind of getting to know the team. So the connection that they have with each other, as well as the story, all 3 in the triangle: writer, director, and producer, and why they want to tell the story, why the story is important to them. Yeah,
the heart of the story. So those 2 questions are really important. What we don't need, because sometimes this is what you ask, what shouldn't we do? And that is like, we've got your script, we've got your log line. We don't need you to reiterate that or say it again to us, or tell us the narrative of the story. What we're really interested in is you as humans. We want to connect, like, it's really important, and we go back to these videos as well. So they're not meant to be complicated. It's very much like this. It's just about being yourself. And I know that people can get really nervous, but one of the things we'd really, really encourage you to do is not read. So it's because we don't get to know you. Like, I know that it can be nerve-wracking, especially if you're an introvert, and it's the last thing on earth you want to do. Yeah, there we go. But if you can, you know, support one another. You may not be in the same room, that's fine. But it's just really about who you are and your passion for what you're doing. Have you got anything else you want to say about that?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've been on the side of making videos myself for applications, and I know that it can feel a little daunting and scary, but it's true what you say, Jude. It's about the humans and your connection and who you are. We want to get to know you a little bit more, and it's okay to stumble and be imperfect, and don't read off a script. Just kind of, just speak from your heart to a sum total of 4 minutes, and then yeah,
that's the other thing that we talked about. If you can keep under time or to time, that's really appreciated. As no one's gonna, like, you know, not read your application if you're over time, but we really appreciate it if you can keep to time. And we've got some questions that have come up. One is about, for applicants applying for funding for films with a budget over 25,000, to what extent do you require information about how the balance of the film is to be funded? That is really a little bit in the stage 2 kind of category, because we're not asking for a budget at the moment, although it's quite normal for people to have the grant of 25,000 as part of their budget, but not that they're seeking other money. They might do crowdfunding, or they might invest some of their own money, or have other investors, you know, might be people, you know. So that's really up to you. You know, it's all sorts of things happen for a short film, but hopefully that answers your question. And then we've got another one. Do you pay attention to people who win on festivals like Show Me Shorts or NZIFF? Attention and meaning to produce their next film with a budget. I think it's great to know that people have applied and have made independent shorts. Really, really respect the independent short filmmakers, because it's really putting your money where your mouth is, and it's really showing your commitment to your craft. And so it's definitely, you know, part of the of looking at the team, absolutely, but it's not a kind of a do or die. We also are completely open to people who have never made a film. That's why it's called Fresh Shorts. And it's that whole thing of actually having an opportunity to make something. But it's, you know, we value that, you know, people have done 48 or, you know, they've made Outlook for Someday shorts or something like that. Okie doke. So we're going to move on to our next section. Here we go, racing now. Sorry, Emma, you feel free.
Do you think we should bring it? Does anyone have any questions about the video component? Just fire them through and we're happy to answer them, or reach out, you know, anytime to me. I'm happy to.
Hopefully that's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, people doing like TikTok, selfies, you know, people are probably a little bit more comfortable, but sometimes it can be a little bit of a stretch for people, but just do your best, you know, it's not about perfection, it's just about completion.
Yeah.
So we're on to genre, and I think Vero's going to pull up the portal, so we can have a look, because there's some choices there about genre. Here we go. So one of the important things about genre is we're asking for you to put the kind of the most prevalent genre first, and this has to do with how people, like, you're setting up an expectation in somebody's mind when they read your script, and there's a difference between, say, a drama that's got a little bit of comedy, or a comedy that has dramatic moments. And it sets, as I said, it sets up the expectation in the reader's mind, and particularly with things like a horror or a thriller. And that has a thing called tropes, which is really just sort of like motifs and themes that people expect when they see that kind of film. Is there anything else you can think of, Emma, in terms of that one?
I think honestly, even go back to basics, and like we talked about earlier, just search the genres that you feel like your film's aligned with, and make sure that that you're connecting with those in your script, and the most dominant genre is landing as it should, and as you list it as number one. And also don't forget, like Vero's doing right now, to hover over the question marks, because they contain a wealth of information as you go through the portal.
Yeah, we don't want it to be a mystery tour for you. I know it's hard doing applications, but we're trying to give you as much information as we can. And, you know, making a film's hard. And so we are trying to understand what your intentions are with the kind of story that you're working with. But things like genre, and also in a script, which we'll kind of get to, but is time and place, because it's really different. Like a film set in 1970 is quite different from a film set in 2022. But, you know, you could have the same location, but there's expectations when you put a film into a time, and also where it is set geographically. So if you have those things like early on in your script and your big print, that helps the reader go, oh, I know where I am, and I know when I am, and I know what genre I'm reading into. And that just really helps them settle into your characters and enjoy the ride and the journey of the story that you're wanting to tell. Any other thoughts there?
No, I think that's great. And I did have a question earlier in the week about a film being sort of a straight thriller with flavors of drama or rom-com, and I think that if you list your genre, for example, as a thriller, and then make mention of those extra flavors in your statement or your video, that's great. But if they don't feel like they're weighing into the decisions that you're making in terms of genre, then I would just make mention of them, so we know that they're there and we can look out for them and keep them in mind.
If it is that it's a thriller, and it's predominantly a thriller, then that's your kind of your dominant genre, and then you can have your rom-com or your romance, or whatever that category is, and then we know kind of the order of things, I suppose. So we've got some questions. If you have more than one producer and some of them are not currently available to make a video, is it okay to make the video with the available producer, but add the producer's bio to the applications? Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable to me, but check in with Emma and she'll double check with Script to Screen.
Yeah.
What about specific subgenres? One of the things is sometimes people, sometimes they do have multiple genres and it's a cross genre, but actually we're trying to just keep it really simple and it's much more useful. And I think it just goes back to what Emma was talking about. Mention your sort of the 2 top genres, and then in your either in your statement, the director's statement, or on your video, talk about the fact that it's it's intersecting a multiplicity. That would be more useful for us, I think. Do you at stage 1 exclude or put at the bottom of the pile those who have part of their producing team, e.g. first-time producer and EP, but are actively waiting from an arms and legs creative on the ground producer response to complete the team? No, I mean, I think if you've, well done you if you've got any producer at the moment. I think there's a lot of people saying it's really hard, and I know it's really hard because I try and match people with producers. What I don't think so. If you've got people who, sometimes are called creative producers, everybody's creative and everybody's a collaborator. But sometimes you might have a production manager or someone who's more akin to a line producer in a larger project. That's fine if you haven't got them on board yet. But if you've got a core team, your, what we like to call the creative triangle, that's great. Awesome. Bring it on. And the more producers, that's awesome. If you've got a producer and a co-producer, cool. Very cool.
Plans and intentions around that stuff. So if you feel like there's a gap in that space, just make sure you include that in your producer's notes. That's all perfect.
And there's a question about, are films written by people in a diaspora accepted? And yes, they are, absolutely. And if you've seen some of the films that have come out in the most recent times, you'll definitely see that. One of the things that is important, I've just closed something down that I shouldn't have. One of the things that is important is that, this is a question that was sent in earlier, is about being a New Zealand citizen or a permanent resident. So there's a difference between a resident visa, which is a working visa. You have to have had that for 2 years before you can apply for permanent residency. And so our rules are that we can fund people who are, New Zealand citizens or permanent residents. We have talked about the fact that you may have a producer who's the lead applicant, who's one of those 2 things, but you may have a co-producer who isn't, and we're just checking out whether that is that person, and it can only be a producer because it's to do with being the lead applicant. So only a producer could be a co-producer. You couldn't have you'd either have a dual directorship or a single director. But we're just getting some feedback from the Film Commission on that, and then we'll probably publish that in terms of the frequently asked, FAQs.
It's a great idea.
Do you want to go to the next question while I track down where I've put my my PDF document, because I did something special to it?
Can I apply with no producer and only as a director for the first stage? Unfortunately, no, we need all three in that triangle. So a producer can also be a writer, but not a director. And a director can also be a writer, but we need all of those roles fulfilled at stage 1. But the producer can definitely not be the director.
Correct. And I know that when you're making independent films, you do everything, but what we're encouraging people to do is work to their strengths. And also we're really interested in teams, because especially for writer directors, you can't journey on further if you have a look at the funding that's available. There's very little you can actually apply for. You need a team. And also as you get into bigger projects, you just can't do it all yourself, basically. That's the theory behind that.
Even on a short film, it's no fun.
No, not fun at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go to logline, because logline's pretty straightforward.
Cool.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, Emma?
Yeah, and maybe we could jump in. I think the formulas come up in the portal as well, Vera. Do you mind? Maybe, I think my mind is serving me correctly, but in terms of the logline, I think just make sure that you leave enough time to work on this. They may be small, but they're punchy and they are powerful. So, and they essentially tell the readers what your film is about in a really succinct way, and they're often what stays with them as they're reading through, and hope that the script delivers on. So yeah, definitely make sure you hover over that question mark and lean into those formulas down there, A and B. When a main character does a major event, a conflict arises, or when a major event happens, a main character must do the main action or goal. They're really, yeah, just have a little paint by numbers exercise there with all your team. Often find that going away, writer, director, producer, and coming up with a few options and then coming together, you can really come up with something that's, yeah, really close to what it is that you're trying to say. So that's kind of me there, Jude. Anything you want to add in?
Just allow time. They're hard, you know, it's a little sentence that packs a really big punch. And in terms of like what gets looked at, and again, informing that reading, we often when we're reading, we read the log line, we know the team, we've seen, you know, who's in the team, and maybe looked at some other bits and pieces, but it's really the kind of the genre and the log line that we go into the read with. And so reflecting the script is really important as well. So sometimes you make changes and then you forget to do your log line again, and it doesn't quite reflect the script. So just it takes a lot of it's iterative, it takes a bit of finessing, it's, you know, have several goes at it, do the shitty first draft and then keep working on it, and you might feel like you're not getting it, but actually that's just the process of writing. You know, writing is a matter of doing and then doing again and doing again, and then, you know, it can take quite a while. So do allow time. Most people don't allow time for that, and also lots of writers really hate them. So you'll have to kind of steel yourself and do it anyway. Do it anyway. We've got some more questions here. We're going to get to what makes a great application. Oh, we can talk about that. What makes a great application in your opinion, and what will make it stand out? What do you look for? I mean, it's really what is in the guidelines. Emma and I were talking about this. You won't believe us, but that's actually what we go back to all the time. So not only the criteria, but there's in the guidelines, there's a thing about what we look for. And it's very much that. I'm going to just go to my notes now.
Yeah, truly, like when I'm doing my applications, I use those guidelines as a checklist essentially, and kind of work my way through and cross them off, especially when it comes to script. Coming back to those questions can be really powerful and really insightful, and kind of guide you in a way. Yeah.
So that's that original style, fresh voice, ideas, the potential of the project, you know, because nothing's perfect, but you can see the kind of the energy and the appeal of the script and the idea and the people. That's why the videos are important, because we all, you know, kind of fall in love with you and think you're awesome, and you know, and it's not about a performative thing, the video. It's about connection. Like, we want to connect with you. We want to understand why that story is important to you. And really it's about feeling. It's all about the feelings. So the other thing is narrative impact. Are we emotionally moved by the story? You know, and are you taking risks, and are you being provocative, and have you got something to say? That's a big thing as well, but that's all in the guidelines. So if you're confused or if you're not sure, go back to the guidelines and the pointers documents too. We've tried to write the pointers documents for both stage 1 and stage 2. So again, you can go and you go, oh, I don't know what they mean about that, or whatever you think they're looking for. Go to those, because that'll help jog your memory and remind you.
Yeah, between the guidelines, the pointers, and the question marks in the portal. I really read it all thoroughly, because it's all there, and it's awesome, an awesome resource. The Fresh Shorts portal is a really great way to keep practicing and writing applications and knowing how and what the readers are looking for and the funders are looking for. It's a really amazing blueprint, so definitely dive into it.
And that's its intention. So there's another question regarding the permanent resident. Is it at the time of application or the time of receiving funding? I'd have to say it would be at the time of application. But, you know, give us a call. If you're in that situation, please call Emma and have a chat to her. Don't take it as a sort of an all or nothing answer. We might need a little bit more information from you. So just please call in with that one. What number can you be reached on, Emma?
Go my cell phone, and I'll just advertise it here online. No, reach out and send me an email, and I'll
send it. So that's freshshorts script to screen correct? Can we change one of the applicants at any stage? i.e. the director needs to back out. Can we change the director at stage 2 or beyond? No, thank you. Sorry. When you're applying with the team, a director is really key to your whole team and the vision and the treatment of the story. So that wouldn't go so great for us. What you can do, and again, it's the producers. If you have a producer who gets waylaid, you can bring on a co-producer, and you can have that, you can expand that producerial team, because the producing role is so broad and it takes such a lot. Then you can bring on more support there. But and you know, with a writer, slightly different when you've got a key, one role, one person doing the writing role. But for the director is one of those things that you can't, with a short film, swap them in and out. So do you accept submissions of projects where the writer, producer and director are the same person? Sorry, no, we don't. So that's why if you read the guidelines, you'll see that you can have a writer, director and a producer. So it's a minimum of 2 people basically. And you could have a producer who's the writer and a director, but you can't have the producer be the director. So that's why that isn't, you can't be all 3 roles. Okay, director summary question. Oh, no, it's gone. Don't know what that was.
Do you want movie examples when discussing shot types, referring to a particular film?
References are great. You know, it helps us understand your sensibility, what you're inspired by. It needs to be in terms of scope and relevance to the work that you're making. It needs to be a bit like for like. If it was a big, really big budget film, it would really be about the themes or something else. But we're sort of, you're moving from the short film space, you're moving into kind of independent features. They're not big budget, and so their audience trajectory is usually to festivals and streamers. So it's really thinking about like for like, and tonally, thematically similar. Might be subject matter, it might be character journey, something like that. But yeah, absolutely, that's good.
Cool. Jude, I'm just aware that it's 6 p.m.
Okay.
And we've made it to the log line.
We're onto the script. We're onto the script. Yeah. I sound like Murray from we're onto the script.
We're on there now.
Okay. Here's one of my favorites. Right. Let's just go. I just want to go to this mental health question. What are your thoughts on mental health reflected in the short films? It's a tough issue to tackle, especially in post-COVID world. Would this sway an application one way or the other? We have a lot of stories that cover, mental health from different perspectives, either through the themes or the character journey. It's really up to you. You know, what is it that you want to explore? What is it you want to say to the world? And the way in which you approach that. You know, every person is going to take a different approach to a subject matter. No person's going to approach it the same way. So, you know, I hope that answers that question. Have you had any other thoughts on that, Emma?
No, I think we had some really great entries last year into Fresh Shorts. Just lots of, it's really beautiful. Any perspective, just bring them to us. This is what we're looking for, different voices in this space and perspectives that haven't been seen before and deserve to be seen. So absolutely.
And I think
yes.
To know too, because you know, it can feel very vulnerable, especially if you're coming from a lived experience that's that is inspiring that story, or someone that's close to you. That I think it's important to understand that it's really respected and received with compassion. It's no one's judging that, or, you know, it's really about your expression. That's what we're interested in. How do you show that in a way that's authentic and unique and kind of truthful? I think that really speaks to people. And, like, you know, we've all got challenges in our lives, and that's what we respond to. And again, it's that emotional journey and the feeling sensibility. So we've got another one about, so obviously we don't want to repeat ourselves in different sections of the application. When writing each section, making the video, should we assume you've read the script already so we can allude to the story, themes, ideas without hesitation? Well, the order that we sort of, well, it can depend. Like the script, I think you can in the video, you can assume that we've, you know, because again, if you cast your mind back, and if you may not have heard, but we talked about we've got the log line, we've got the script. In your video, you don't need to repeat the narrative. Like, we want to get to know you. So in that sense, yeah, assume we've read the story, and we can bounce around. If we don't understand something, we can go and reference it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But it is important. I think you brought up a really good point there, that don't repeat yourself. You know, like, utilize each kind of field so that you are coming from a slightly different angle. So you don't want your producer and your director saying exactly the same thing. The directorial element is really about the treatment and the vision, and how the director's going to work with actors and, you know, HODs to bring that to reality. And your producer is a bit more about the how, like the challenges and the logistics and the team that they're putting together. But it's still that you're both referencing the story, you know, because that's your blueprint, and that's what we're looking at and going, oh, you know, does this match the story that you're told, you know?
And to connect with that in your statements. You don't have to labor it, but for both the director and producer's statements, definitely connect with the why and the themes of the story as well. Just it's okay to reiterate that connection that you've shared in the video, or articulated in a sentence.
Yeah, but just a sentence, because you've only got 300 words, so you want to use them wisely. And kia ora for that lovely compliment. I won't read that out, but would your recommendation be to focus on one project, e.g. if you have a few projects in development with the same writer, director, producer team, can we apply with more than one project in the funding round, or is it best to focus only on one project? It's really up to you. I would say probably 2, you know, like maybe 3 but really you don't want to knock yourself out. That's the other challenge, because we get down, you know, like last year we had 112 down to 18, and I don't think we had one team, we had 2 teams, and they had two of the same people, like one was a producer on the other person's as the writer director's film, and the other one was on as actually the person who was a producer on one film was then a writer director on another with a different producer, and they both got shortlisted, and they're very different stories. So so it's not impossible, but with the same team, you know, you're going to have a similar voice. So you might want to make sure that your stories are quite unique and that they can be differentiated. That might be. Any other thoughts, Emma, on that one?
I think that just exactly what you said, and just remember that you're competing against yourself. So if there is a story that you are more connected with and feel more passionate about, you and your team, just make sure that you put your effort into that. And kind of know where your priorities lie in terms of what's more important for you right now.
Somebody asked about what genres are you hoping to see in this year's script. Whatever you want to make. The only things we can't accept, and this was some of the earlier questions, porn. We don't fund porn, and we're you know, there's an authentic representation summary. That's really important to us, that you're, you know, doing your research and making sure that you've got authentic characters, that you are collaborating and consulting in a timely fashion, and making sure that you've got a really fully informed script. But you know, like, we fund all sorts of genres, so hopefully that answers that question. So let's get on to script, because we're you know, time is moving on. So I've got some Emma and I had a conversation. Now, in your guidelines, again, there's the narrative checklist. This is really important. That checklist has been created because those are sort of all the things that we see over and over and over again in scripts that could be further developed, like that could be strengthened. And so that's the positive versioning of that. You know, have you got this in your, and you know, and look at that and kind of examine your script. That's a kind of a hopefully a useful rule of thumb. But Emma and I sort of put together like the top 5 that we agreed on, and these are the top 5. Central dramatic question: what's the story about? Why should we care? And it relates to theme. And I'm going to ask Emma some questions. I'm going to go back into these and ask Emma some questions from her experience. We put, and not in any specific order necessarily, but they are all important. Dramatic conflict, which can also be called dramatic tension, or sometimes called rising tension, as it gets, you know, your story gets more and more tense. And remembering too that sometimes stories don't have big, you know, massive arcs, but they're quite nuanced and subtle, but still they should have tension within that storytelling. I'll come back to that. Character journey, changing from beginning to end, authentic characters, and that can take some research. And that also includes things like point of view, visual storytelling, which is about the action, the behavior of the characters, the description of the environment, helping us to understand the world of the story. We talked about unless it's a director or writer director's voice, and there's a couple of examples. Martin McDonough, who wrote and produced, he wrote and directed a film called Six Shooter. He's Irish, and he won an Academy Award for that short film. It's very talky, very dialogue driven. And he also went on to, he's the person who made In Bruges, 7 Psychopaths, and 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Even his titles are talky. And then there's another director who came to our minds, Damien Chazelle, whose short Whiplash also is quite dialogue driven, although it's really tense and active. And then he made the feature of that, and then La La Land, which is all about, there's lots of words there, as well as the dance and the songs. So that's their voice though, and they sort of express that voice in their short into their features. the final one for us was strong ending that reflects this theme of the story, because that's what you leave your audience with. So I'm just going to go back to the top and ask Emma some quick questions. So central dramatic question, what does that mean to you, and how have you developed this with some of your collaborators and the stories that you've told?
So for me, so recently I co-produced a Someday Stories film, which was written and directed by Ella Gilbert, and that can be freely watched online. So I thought that this is probably a good one for me to reference. It was Ella's first short film as a writer-director. So we did a lot of work in development and finding what the central dramatic question was for her. So what was the central question, the driver facing our protagonist in this story? And because it's a story about a young unwed woman who falls pregnant in 1963, already we're setting up a lot of restrictions and weight on this character within this time period. So the question that we identified was, how can Mary find her freedom? And each scene in the film turns on this question, and it's present in every scene as we go along and we build on it, and essentially we don't solve it until the end of the film, because the point.
Yeah, so it sets it up from the beginning, and then you're constantly working through it. And like, there's lots of Google is your friend, people. If you don't know something, like, get on there. There's so many resources online. So central dramatic question, that is a big one. So dramatic conflict. So when you read a script, Emma, what does that look like to you? And when you've been working on a script with a writer and someone gives you notes about dramatic conflict or dramatic tension, how have you, worked that through?
So going back to basics of story and talking about a character who's on a journey, who wants something, they have a goal, and an obstacle gets in their way from attaining that goal, and it's how do they then overcome that to get what it is that they need, and therefore kind of the themes and resolution at the end of the story. So that conflict, even in a small, like you say, nuanced film, I've worked on some really quiet films about an elderly couple sort of saying goodbye for the last time, or a wife letting go of her husband as he leaves for hospice. But this situation is the worst thing that can happen to this character in this specific moment. So something that feels, like you say, insurmountable for a character to overcome is really a good way to look at dramatic conflict. And it doesn't have to be loud and raging. It can be something really small and internal that that's felt. Yeah, like as in even with Mary as an example, this is a young woman who sort of tries with all the resource that she has at her disposal to get rid of this pregnancy, but the worst thing that's possible that could happen to her is that her mother discovers that she's pregnant, and then the future that she'd hoped for and dreamed of disappears. So yeah, and she has to overcome that to reach a place where she settles and can accept the future that she has ahead of her, and find the strength and resilience to do that. So yeah, I think that's how it lands with me.
Yeah, and we've got a little diagram which I've been inspired by. Vera, can we see our crazy little diagram? There we go. Oh, there we go. So literally the star is the goal. It's the thing that the character is heading towards. The little dotted line underneath that stick figure's feet is their journey, and that's the obstacle. And as Emma talked about, and I know this looks really basic, but actually sometimes the simplest thing is a really useful tool in helping you come back to what is the obstacle, what's the greatest, most difficult thing for my character in this situation. And as Emma said, sometimes it's internal, it's not, it can be, but how do you externalize internal conflict. So that's part of your journey of working through that. So then the next thing is, well, that kind of leads to character journey, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The change from beginning to end. And also about point of view, that, you know, key to a short film. We don't, I mean, I know that you have, there's always exceptions to the rule, or to, you know, the form. But what's useful is to take your audience on the deepest emotional journey in this short amount of time. And so point of view is really important. And, you know, sometimes people have a lot of characters in a short film, and actually the more time we can spend with the fewest number of characters or the least number of characters, the better, because that's where we get that emotional journey from. I talk about shorts being like a haiku poem. It's just about one moment. You're bringing us to one moment with the characters or character, and then we have that final, and the final ending helps us to, you know, basically you have that sort of climactic point and the ending. And so when you read a script, Emma, what does it look like to you? The character journey, like what are you looking for? And again, when you've had notes yourself with scripts, you know, how have you addressed that with a writer?
Yeah, it's, well, always, even in the first scene, dropping into it, knowing whose story this is and what world we're in, and setting up the reader for the ride ahead really quickly, because with a short film, you don't have the luxury of bathing in the opening. You really have to go deep fast, and so understanding what the character wants and their need, kind of reflecting back on dramatic conflict, and then and what they're striving towards, and that's and links again back to the central dramatic question as well. So if you can identify that central question and then the conflict, when you come to the journey, you'll be in a really good place. You know, like Mary again wants to not be pregnant, needs to find a way forward and a strength towards acceptance. I really love working with writers who dive into character bio and ask themselves questions like, where were they born? Where did they grow up? What were they like as a child? How many siblings? All of those things that can inform the character on the page and give us a real sense of who it is that we're journeying with. Yeah.
I agree. I call that work off the page work.
Yeah.
And it really helps. Like the more you know that character, the more that you can hear them, how they speak, how they walk and talk, and how they interact with people, their beliefs, their, you know, making up that whole world that they that they're coming from. The better that you, and with other characters as well, doing that work with other characters, the more specific you can be in finding that material for conflict as well, because things surface out of that is, you know, really useful material, and brings a kind of a specificity to your story. That's the best way I can describe that. So then we've got visual storytelling. That's the next one. Or have we just, no, sorry, we've just done that, beg your pardon. So strong ending, funnily enough, ironically, a strong ending. Is that
a little bit visual, maybe a little bit visual storytelling, just saying, finding a way to just have a couple of notes to tell stories by showing and not telling, including action on the page or visual details about the environment, how the characters exist in space, that further character development and plot rather than the dialogue default.
And so that goes back to that note, unless it's the director's voice or the writer-director's voice, you know, where the characters also are going through that journey as well, even though they might be talking their heads off. It's usually part of the characters or part of the world.
And often I'll start, I know in short films that I've worked on through development, you'll start with a script that can be quite dialogue heavy, with an awareness that you are going to go back through and do a pass that essentially strips out many times 2/3 of the dialogue actually, or
Yeah,
or
I
90%
set
even.
you know, set challenges for people where to go through and just write it visually, and then if they've got that very talky version of it, and then find out what is essential. But it's also essential to, again, it's coming back to the central dramatic question, what's essential to that. So finally, the ending, and someone, just before we go into that, someone asked a question, is there a bias against a bittersweet or bitter endings, as in the character gets what they want, but not what they need, bittersweet? No bias, as long as you're, you know, it's more about satisfaction. Is it a satisfying ending? I'm a really big believer in tragedy. If you're going to have a tragedy, really go into the tragedy of it. Don't hold back. Don't protect your characters, because it's not satisfying. Like, for me, stories are they're kind of psychotherapy, really. You know, you're journeying with characters. They're solving something. They're taking you on an emotional journey. So you want it to be kind of cathartic, and that I'm responding to that, what that character's going through. And if it's sad, you know, let it be sad. If it's bittersweet, like, make it the most bittersweet ending you can possibly have, you know. But again, it's like the difficulty of that journey for the character, even this short amount of time of a short film, really make it, you know, the most difficult, because that'll be the most satisfying, whether it's a tragedy or, you know, a happy ending. That's it'll be the again, it comes down to authenticity and what's right for that story as well. If it's right for the story, yeah, bittersweet is awesome.
Yeah.
So endings, talk to me about why endings are so important with short films, Emma. Why you think they are?
Oh, because that's where you leave the audience, and that's where you are. That's what you're directing them to feel at the end of your film, and you need to know what it is that you want them to feel, and that has to be a resolution of that central question that you've been driving towards throughout the film. For me, yeah, so important to. And sometimes you don't reach that place until you've been through many iterations of the script, and you really know your characters, and you really have you really know what that question is, and it does take time, actually, to get there.
Yeah.
And
That process of, you know, the cul-de-sacs and the painful moments of not knowing, like, there's lots of not knowing in writing. Someone just asked if this is going to be this is recorded. Just someone said, I'd really like my teammates to see this. Great, it's recorded. You can share that with them, just to get that one off the agenda. Let's go to director's summary, 5 images and producer statements, because we've only got a few minutes in. So we'll make it count, don't you worry. But it's remembering it's all there in the pointers and the guidelines. Let's talk director summary. What do you think's important there?
Well, like we said, you have your little couple of sentences, short pitch on what the film is to you, why you want to tell it, a little bit of a reiteration of what you said in the video, and anything that you may have missed out, and just reaffirming your connection to the story briefly is important, I think, to me. And then it's moving into, in a really succinct way, how you intend to make the film, what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, tone, mood, atmosphere, and how you will work with cast, and what HODs even you have in mind to help you creatively achieve this. Yeah,
and if you don't have HODs, you know, if you're really super new to the industry, that's fine. Like, it's just, you can think about it though. The kinds of people you'd like to work with, or you know, or what, maybe it's more focusing on what you hope to achieve, and it's also thinking about so it's communicating in your mind's eye what the style of that film is, a little bit about aesthetic. And that's where someone asked about references. Just a few key references can help us sort of go, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about here. Because, and then that leads into, you know, the imagery. So director summary is just how you visualize the story, not how someone else might, but your vision, your treatment. The treatment is the how and who you're going to work with, and then you know, who's going to help you create this. We sort of the hand in glove of the visual imagery. Vero, have you got the 5 images? This is something that Vero put together, and I thought it was from an application, but this gives you a sense of, it's not all the same imagery, but it gives a sensibility. You can see there's a coherence or a kind of a connection. The light, it has a sensibility to it. So that just gives you, hopefully, a little bit of an idea. But those 5 images are really, really important. And that can give us some insight. You know, like if you think about a painting, it's only one image, but it can open up this whole world, the color, the composition, the way that light has been captured, all of those things, the way that bodies are shown and positioned in frame, all of those things. And then you're putting together, it's like a collage, a visual collage of, and again, you're trying to create a feeling, a sense for somebody who's looking at that of how all of those images together create the sort of sense of the tone of the film that you want to make, that you imagine in your mind's eye. And that helps us, we sort of reimagine that script a little bit from that and your director's summary. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that that's their opportunity to exercise their voice, especially if they don't have any prior work. If you have a really strong visual image component, and that really lands, it can be really powerful. And I think that, just as your visual identity as a filmmaker comes through in those five images, and that's what you are, visual storytellers. So make sure you utilize them, and don't be afraid to, dive into all those screen grab websites. There's some really awesome resources out there, lots of movie film websites that have a big canon of films loaded up. So if you can't find them, send me an email and I can send them through to you.
And like for like, tonally, thematically. So it's, so moving to
variation. Sorry, quickly. Variation. Don't be all close-ups or mid-shots. Make sure you give us breath and rhythm and wide and close. And
so we are moving on to the producer's statement. The producer's statement is really like the how. It's and it's looking at the challenges and plans and contingencies. So, if you've got so maybe you've got, often people have children, animals, water. What else? They might have some stunts, or they've got VFX.
Stunts.
Those are the things when we read your script. What did you have, Emma?
All of those things.
Oh, yes. She had a cow, a calf, kids on bicycles, down big hills, people, all sorts of, a bull.
How are you going to realize this?
So we just want to understand who are you going to work with to help you do that? Or if you don't know right in that moment what you plan to do in order to get those people to help you. So it's intentions. Plans and contingencies, intentions. And that is also, so I just want to briefly go to, I know we're running over time a little bit, I apologize for that. And obviously, if people have to go, just remembering this is recorded, so you can pick this up. But authentic representation of tangata whenua and diversity. Now this is as it relates to your content, if you have a story that has Māori content and you have got a guide as to what Māori content is, as Te Rautaki have identified. But if you've got people from different ethnicities or identification, it's really important, if you're not from that community, that you're engaging and you're giving yourself time to do that, and really and looking about how you can meaningfully collaborate. That is what we're wanting to understand. How are you approaching that? And again, it's intentions. If you haven't started to do that yet, what are your intentions to do? Any other thoughts on that, Emma?
Yeah, I think it's just letting us know that you've really turned this over and considered it, and that you're really alert and sensitive to especially that collaboration aspect, rather than singularly consulting with someone. Collaborating and collaboration is so important, and identify whether, what and how and where you will need that in your story. Yeah,
more than one source always is useful, so that you're getting some cross-referencing there. Championing diversity and inclusion. This is an optional summary. We really want to understand what people are doing, but also, if again it's plans and intentions, we are wanting to inform future initiatives, and so that's why we've put this in. It's relating to our diversity and inclusion policy, and if you haven't read that, it's a beautiful looking document. Go and have a look at it. It's it's about representation, equity, opportunity. So this is what we're wanting to understand in front of the camera from your point of view. Like, what are you doing? Or what do you intend to do? So in front of the camera, behind the camera, and there's some really good, there's a resource that's there, and it's things like, representation, support, accessibility, education, policies, principles and values, the organisations that you're collaborating or intend to collaborate with, things like that, so, but that is optional. For you to answer that, and it's not assessed. So where does that leave us? Oh, we've got some questions. Why don't we answer these questions?
Yeah, and we may have some that we haven't addressed, and if we haven't, by the time we wrap up, just reach out to me, or I'll reach out to you, and we can have a chat. And there
was a question about somebody talked about sculpted art, that there didn't seem to be a place to show sort of conceptual sculptured art. I would suggest you use your video, and you maybe utilize a little bit of that. In the stage 2, there's a lot more visual reference, and you can utilize it there, but I agree, it's a good thing to understand because it's got quite a big implication on your particular project. So that's our suggestion there. In the chat, we've got some, we have a great producer, writer, director, but we also have an animation CGI who's very much part of our team. Can we include them in the golden triangle? So, so sadly, we are above the line, and it is writer, producer, director. And I know that might seem a bit mean. It doesn't mean that we don't think that they are an important part of your team, but that's just our focus for this particular initiative. And do you have any advice for anyone looking for a producer? I've tried the ESAA producer list, and I'm struggling to find someone. This is a common occurrence at this time of year. Emma and I had a couple of ideas. So she's got some lists that she's happy to share with you. So please, can you just say your email address, please?
freshshorts at script-to-screen.co.nz, and I have a few resources that I can share, and you can yeah, welcome to give me a buzz to chat about it as well. I know that there is a bit of a drought out there, and it's not easy or quick either. And to that note, I would love to direct you all towards the SPADA best practice guide, and especially the no surprises policy, as you're kind of entering into these potentially new collaborations and relationships. It's a really awesome resource. So
if you go onto the SPADA website, if you Google SPADA, SPADA, and you look at their resources, and it's in that section. I think it's resources for new filmmakers, I think.
Yes, maybe Vera can send a link to the everyone chat. Oh no, is there one? Oh, here we go. Oh, the SPADA upload for emerging producers. I will just reach out to me and I can send it through, and perhaps we can. Oh, she's just sent it. Okay, Vera has just sent it. There we go. Thank you, Vera.
So the other thing too is that there's a number of people here. Some of them will be looking for producers, some will be producers. So also contact Emma in that light. But it is a challenge. We discussed that maybe for next year we have some speed dating months earlier, so you've got time to develop your work. But that's something that we can work towards, because this is an ongoing challenge for everybody. It doesn't actually change as you get to feature films. It's the same problem. So that's why we encourage multiple producers. In part is that we really want to encourage producers. We want teams. We want people to journey together. So I think we're nearly 10 minutes over. Sincere apologies for that. Sorry to keep people away from possibly their dinners. But we really thank you for spending this time with us. We hope it's been helpful. It's recorded. You can go back and listen to it if you can bear it. Emma is available to you as a resource, and you can hear she's got lots of experience. She's very good at applications, people.
Thank you.
So take that on board. I know that sometimes people can be a bit shy of getting on a phone call, so maybe send her an email and you can work it out.
Yeah, but, I've asked all the questions before myself, so definitely just you utilize me. That's what I'm here for. So, and
anything we think we haven't touched on that was sent prior to, we'll update the FAQs. I think might be a really good way, and that resource is on the Script to Screen website. So that's a way we can address that. So please go and have a look at that. Maybe early next week. give a day, and that hopefully should answer those questions. Otherwise, just get in contact with Emma directly. But thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be signing off now, and we're just wishing you all the best in terms of your application. It's really good to, even if you're feeling nervous about it, it's great to do applications. All of filmmaking is about practice, and the more you practice it, it doesn't get easy, but it gets easier. And you grow in confidence. So I just really want to encourage you to practice. And I'm really excited to see how many applications we get, and and how it all works out in the end. It's a big mystery. Cool.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thank you again, and we'll sign off and say kia ora. And good luck.
Yes.